Hi there, boys, girls, and everybody outside and in between. Thank you for joining. This is my first ever TBR. This is going to be a list of things that I plan on reading throughout the year. There are a few reasons why I've never done one of these before. Mostly it's because I usually don't like scheduling what I'm going to read. Whenever it comes time for me to grab a new book, I just go through my shelves and whatever sounds the most interesting at that moment, that's what I'm reading. And that is most likely what's going to continue happening. But I do have a list of things that I would very much like to at some point read throughout the year. Since none of these are things that I've read before, I don't really have a lot of details to say about them. I'm just going to be telling you what really sold me on the book and why I'm interested in reading it. Starting with Creatures Most Vile by Chelsea Lauren. Now, I'm aware that I just said I don't like scheduling what I'm going to read, and that is true, but this is dead set on being the next thing I'm reading. Right now, I'm going through Dune Messiah. Love being back in the Duneverse, and as soon as I'm done with that, this is next up. No question. This is a dystopian YA novel where our protagonist is recruited into a school that's going to help her learn how to use her powers and help people. However, after she's there for a little while, she learns that it's not really a school to help her as much as it is a cage to contain her. In the interest of full disclosure, I will say one of the reasons I am most excited about this is because I actually know the author. We went to school together, and she had a book published that's incredible, and I'm very excited to read it. Next, and I should tell you, these are in no particular order other than the first. Next is Red Sister by Mark Lawrence. It's going to sound familiar, but this is about a girl who's recruited into a school that's going to help her learn how to use her powers to help people. This is the first book of the Ancestor series, and I have heard a lot of hype about this on BookTube. It's very popular in fantasy circles, and I am a big fan of people having unique abilities and powers. I am a big fan of assassin stories, and I am a big fan of superpowers in a school setting. So this hit a lot of boxes for me. Very excited about it. Next is The Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne, which is book one of The Bloodsworn. I was sold on this very quickly. I have friends who have recommended John Gwynne to me before. It's inspired by Norse mythology. It deals with gods battling each other and the aftermath of such a battle. And it sounds to me like something I will love. Next up, we have A Mango Called Orange by Ichigo Takano. This is about a girl in high school who gets a letter from herself in the future. This is a very popular sci-fi romance. What really sold me on this was honestly my roommate. He is a big manga fan, and he knows my tastes very well, so when he told me that this is something I might like, I definitely listened. And knowing how popular it is, and with his recommendation, definitely something I'm interested in. After that, we're going to talk about Red Rising from Pierce Brown. I do have the whole series of this, and I do plan on getting through it eventually, but at some point this year, I'm going to read at least this first one. In the universe of this book, humans have colonized Mars, and there is a caste system in place that makes it so the lowest caste, the Reds, are essentially as slaves for their whole lives, and they're told that what they're doing is helping to make Mars habitable. No one tells them that Mars is already thriving as a colony for humans. And the caste at the top, the Golds, have been exploiting them. And we are going to see our protagonist, Darrow, face this caste system and this whole society head on. I have heard comparisons drawn to Battle Royale and The Hunger Games, two stories that I absolutely love, and this has been very popular on BookTube for a while. So as usual, I'm late to the party on this one, but I am very excited to get to it. That is Red Rising. Next, we're going to talk about The Blade Itself by Joe Abercrombie. This is book 1 of his First Law trilogy, and this is a powerhouse of modern fantasy. I have heard recommendations from this coming from other booktubers, coming from friends who have read it. What really sold me on this is what I have heard about how Abercrombie writes his characters. I have not read any of his work yet. This is going to be my first. And what I have heard about his writing is that his characters are so realistic that you completely understand their motivations and why they're doing what they do. It's rare that you agree with them, but you understand. And I cannot wait to envelop myself in a world with such real, rich characters. Next up, we have another mango. This one is Blood on the Tracks by Shuzo Oshimi. This is one I actually know very little about. I first heard about this on a YouTube video that described it as the best of psychological horror manga. And immediately I was sold. So while that is all that I have been told about it, a combination of that and its very high rating made me want to read it. Next is Red Mars by Kim Stanley Robinson. I was told about this trilogy because I am such a big fan of the board game Terraforming Mars. And that is what this story is about. Astronauts going to Mars to terraform it, make it habitable for human life. And what excites me the most about this book is that this is very hard science fiction. It is based on principles and concepts that we have, but they are taken to such an extreme, and that is something that I will always like. This is one that I have had for a while, but I finally am going to get to, I hope. That is Red Mars. Next is The Rage of Dragons by Evan Winter. This is book 1 of the Burning series. Again, another one that I don't know much about personally, but was talked about so much on BookTube that my interest was piqued, and it's my understanding that the magic system in this world, in one way or another, revolves around dragons, which is a big plus for me. If you tell me dragons are involved and it's this popular, I'm gonna take a look. Back to science fiction with Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky. In this story, humans are leaving Earth as it is no longer a proper home for us, and they're following these star charts that their ancestors made to help them find a new planet to live on. But when they get there, it's already inhabited, and it does not go over well. You combine science fiction, new worlds with strange alien life, won Book of the Year by the Arthur C. Clarke Awards, and someone mentioned something about spiders. So I am very interested in this when I am able to get to it. Next, we are going to talk about Scythe by Neil Shusterman. Now, I might not be understanding this correctly, but I am under the impression that in the world of Scythe, humans don't really die anymore unless they want to. And when they so choose, someone called a Scythe comes to kill them. And we are following a new recruit to the Scythe program, and through them we learn that this utopia is not as great as it seems. Now granted, that trope is fairly played out, but the twist that this took on it is what's making me interested. Next is another mango. This is The Drifting Classroom by Kazuo Umes. In this, a school mysteriously vanishes. And while people outside of it are trying to investigate and find out what happens to the kids in there, those who vanished aren't dead. They are in this terrifying wasteland, and they are just trying to survive and get back. This is considered a classic of horror manga, and with its reputation, with its story, and another recommendation from my roommate, this is high on my list. Next, we're going to talk about The Troop by Nick Cutter. In this story, a Boy Scout troop is out on a camping trip, and they come under attack by this parasite that can get into any open wound you might have on your body, the smallest cut or scrape, and you're susceptible. And a lot of Cronenberg-style body horror ensues. I got excited for this book because one booktuber who I've followed for a few years now was doing a review of it, and she described it so well and made it sound so good, I bought it before the video was over. I am probably going to be saving this for October, around Halloween time when I try to read spooky things. I'm very excited for it. Next, let's talk about Bakuman by Tsugumi Oba and Takeshi Obata. This is one that I actually know very little about. This is coming off of a strong recommendation from my roommate, and that's pretty much it. I know that the story is about a couple of kids who want to make their own manga, and you get a really nice inside look into what that process is actually like of becoming a mangaka and trying to be a popular creator. And I think that that kind of story of struggle and hardship to try to achieve something is something most people can relate with. Oh, also it's by the people who made Death Note. So, next we have a comic version of my favorite book of all time, Slaughterhouse V by Kurt Vonnegut. I could go on for hours about this book. Its perception on death, time, its philosophy. Slaughterhouse V is one of the very few books that I have read multiple times. I love it so much. I have "So It Goes" tattooed on me. And when I learned that there was a comic version of it, couldn't resist. I cannot wait to see this story that I love so much brought to life with illustration. The last mango I have on my TBR is an absolute classic. This is Fist of the North Star by Buronson and Tetsuo Hara. Again, I know very little about this. I know that it is a post-apocalyptic world. I know that our main character here is one of the strongest fighters in this world. And I know that the story itself inspired Berserk, which is considered by many to be the best manga ever created. And Berserk has inspired countless other things. So the story that inspired that, I'm very interested. Cannot wait to open this up. And lastly, we have The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams, a modern classic in the world of science fiction, and again, one I have to admit I don't know much about. But considering how much I know I love science fiction and satire, it's very unlikely I'm not going to love this. I realized after filming this that I forgot to mention what I'm listening to on audiobook, which right now is The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. And once I'm done with that, I'm most likely just going to continue on with the Stormlight Archive. So you can also add the Stormlight Archive to this list. But only as audiobook. I do not have the time to even try reading it. So that is my TBR for 2022. Thank you so much for watching. In the comments, let me know what you're excited to read this year, or any thoughts you have on what I have on my list. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time.